It's Ian Roberts. Hi, Ian. How you going?
I'm very well. It's very nice to be here, mate. I've been a big fan for a long time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And just thank you very much for. I know you've been busy this week. It's been quite a controversial week. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I wanted to ask you a few things about your how you came out because I know that you were out before you came out professionally.
Yeah,
So how was your coming out as a young man in the? I take it was about the 1980s, 1990s.
1990s. Yeah, I was kind of. I started playing grade football for South Sydney in 1986, and I kind of really. I mean, I'd never inverted commas kind of since starting been in the closet, if you know what I mean. I was always out
Yeah.
on the main. I'd always had like boyfriends. Um, but it wasn't. I wasn't comfortable in a football environment talking about it openly. Absolutely. Um, then I left South in 1990 to go to Manly, and I did decide when I left South because that I was going to come out publicly in 1990, but and this is probably a little bit of history for a lot of people. Over in the UK, Justin Fashanu, who was an English soccer player, came out in 1990. And obviously, we didn't have the internet and everything back then. We actually used to have to read papers and listen to the news and watch. He was treated so terribly by the English public and by the supporters. It really put me off. That's the reason I didn't come out in 1990. I mean, because the treatment he received. Justin ended up taking his life in 1998.
Mm.
That he like you hear that saying, we stand on the shoulder of giants. Well, Justin is one of those for me. So that's the reason I didn't come out in 1990. Then by 1994. It was the worst kept secret in rugby league that I was gay. My partner at the time, Shane, was actually the mascot for the for the Seagulls, Manly. That guy used to run around in the Seagull
Yep.
suit with my partner, and everyone knew that.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
did that? How did the players like before you came out? Did the players treat you differently, or were they inclusive? How was it in the club?
I think it's like a lot of working environments, and these men were my friends as well.
Yeah.
Most, I'm not going to say there wasn't any sort of pushback and any sort of misunderstanding. And back then, we're talking about a very different time. You're talking about the early '90s, and this is a time when gay men were being pushed off the cliffs around the eastern suburbs. It really was that type of world. But I think, like any working environment, once people get to know you, and even if they're not comfortable around um, uh, around gay people, around those people, or if they think they're not, once people get to know you and realize, it was fine. But again, I'm not going to say all the players were 100% with it, but that's that was fine. I think when I came out, it was almost like it allowed everyone else to breathe as well. It's almost like, it's
Mm.
finally, mate. It was, the topic is now on the table. It's okay. Um, I have a wonderful story about Bob Fulton, who was the Australian coach at the time I came out, because I came out really over on the Kangaroo Tour in '94. And
Yeah.
Bozo, that's his nickname. Bozo, Bob Fulton, he was also the coach at Manly. And I remember getting a phone call on tour over in Leeds. That's where we were staying in Leeds. And Bozo said, "Robbo, you've got to come up and see me, mate. There's an issue." And look, trust me, you never get that phone call unless there's something quite bad.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Terry Hill, my roommate, I'm like, Bozo, she's called me up to the like, mate, what's going on?
Mm.
Like, and we was like, oh, he's going to drop you from the team but my form had been really good. Anyway, and I should let you know that when you're on those rugby league tours, I don't know what the other codes do, but players, partners, wives, girlfriends aren't allowed to stay with them in the hotel.
Right.
Okay for them to be over on tour and come to the games, but the team is kept as a unit all the time. Anyway, so I remember getting up to Bozo's room up in the penthouse, and the door was ajar, and I looked in, and Bozo was like pacing up and down, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god! I was thinking, what? And then I started thinking something really bad's happened, like that there might have been an accident at home or something. So I knocked on the door and he said, "Robbo, come in." And he said, "Oh, mate, sit down." And I'm like, "Bose, just tell me, mate, what's happened?" Like, and he stopped and he looked at me and he said, and my partner then was Shane, right? Shane was over on tour, but he wasn't staying with me. And just the way he said it, like we'd never spoken about anything about my sexuality at this point. Bose just said, "Mate, Robbo, Shane can't stay with you in the hotel." And I said, "He's not, Bose. He's staying in a pub up the road." And he was like, "Oh, great, mate. No worries." It was almost like the biggest relief to him. But I said, as I left, to me, that was like the moment. It was just like things kind of changed for me because it was those total acceptance and football. Like it was almost one of those moments. And he said, "Oh, Robbo, it doesn't matter to me, mate. All good. As long as I know that, that's all I have." That because apparently Shane had been to the hotel the day before, and the manager had thought he was staying in the hotel.
Wow.
But it's just one of those nice moments, like it was just almost like these clash of worlds that come together. And for me, it was like the most uplifting and empowering thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to have that sort of reception professionally. But how did the media treat you when you
really
came out?
The Australian media was really, really respectful. Like, and I've since spoke to a lot of reporters since, and leading up until that time when I came out publicly, a whole lot of them had I've since had conversation with, have said that they wanted to ask me that question, but out of respect, until I was comfortable like announcing it, they never asked, which is quite it's quite honourable and almost like they were creating a safe space for my own personal experience as well.
Yeah, and look, I actually remember I came to Sydney in 1990 and came out around then as well. I think I'm a year younger than you, and it was great seeing you in the press. And you're really a role model for a lot of us. It's really cool.
Honestly, I've been very fortunate. I always say being gay is my superpower.
Yeah.
I mean that quite seriously. I mean, being gay has given me a strength that I didn't know that I had. But sometimes these things are kind of thrust upon you, or if I don't know if that's the right term, but I just think visibility is so important for our our young community, and I just you can't be what you can't see type thing. It's almost I really kind of do believe in that. It's like which kind of saddens me, even though there's been quite in the last 2 or 3 years been a trickle of like within men's sport, and I'm now talking solely about men's sport because women's sports seem to be all over this. They seem to be okay with lesbian and bisexual women, there's a bit of controversy out at the moment about the trans women and all that.
Yeah,
it's a conversation needs to be had. I fully support trans women playing
definitely
all levels of sport. But the men, but within the men's professional leagues, particularly within contact sports, there's still I've got to say it's still seen as being almost a weakness to be gay or be bisexual, some form of weakness, or there is that perception because the numbers just you can't tell me that there aren't gay men playing contact professional sport at the moment. And if there are, there's been a couple of men over in rugby league who came out in the British competition over there, and obviously Josh Cavaliero came out in the A League earlier last year, which is wonderful.
Exactly. And I believe since the controversy, Keegan Hurst in the UK is going to make a comeback as well, which is amazing.
I think Keegan played for Witness or Wakefield. Wakefield. Yeah, Keegan came out probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah,
that's. I wasn't aware of that. That's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah. When you came out, was there any other? Now, I don't want to out anyone, but was there any reach out from any other players that came to you for support?
There has been on 3 occasions, like since I came out and have retired, I've had men reach out to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, yes, I've had some guys reach out to me, but it's one of those situations. My response is, you've got to feel safe and you've got to feel comfortable doing this. Don't feel pressured into doing anything that you're uncomfortable with. Because there's no going back in.
Yeah, once you're out. That's it, isn't it? I mean, what do you think is there a problem with men's professional sports that people can't come out? What at the heart? What do you think it is?
Yes. I mean, I really do believe it's all about education. Yeah. I keep saying that. I mean, like I've got my Utopia on. That's a Pride Museum we're establishing to create here in Sydney. Yeah. The reason I'm a member on the board of that is because I believe in education, and we'll be running educational programs out of there for from primary school to high school right through to corporate type things. The more people, I'm also part of another group called Think About It, which is a program we run out of the NRL. Actually, out of the NRL, it's a program around inclusion and diversity. It's a theatre sports program. We present to all the clubs, to the players, to the staff, the administration as well. What that event is about is me and three or four other actors. We have about a dozen different scenes that we know we're driving through. Those scenes are about stuff like misogyny, what a safe space is, about homophobia, the effects of transphobia. And we get a couple of players or a couple of people up involved. The actors know where that scene's driving through to. The people involved trying to negotiate the best way they know how. Then after, and hopefully they do that in a positive way. Trust me, it's not always. That's not always the result. But then we break down and we talk about it. So we talk about how things can be done better, or potentially, people could handle that better. So I'm actually a part of an educational, and I've been doing that for a long, long time.
And what's the audience for that?
We've done we do all the teams. We normally do the teams and then admin once a year. We do a whole lot of corporate stuff as well. It's called Think About It. It's a wonderful concept. It really is, because a lot of it is done with humour. Yeah. We like to think by the end of that event, we've made them laugh, made them cry, but most importantly, made them think.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. Yeah. So I'm going to come to the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the Manly Pride Round. Now, a Pride Round is something you've been advocating for a long time, isn't it?
For a number of years now. The last few years, I've had a little. Well, we've had. It's not just me. There's me and another group of the team. I've had a little bit of success. I think after what's happened, what happened last Thursday night with the Manly Pride Round, I think it was a really positive thing. I mean, it's probably not the way we wanted to start the conversation, but we got that conversation started. People, since marriage equality, people think the fight's over. Not the fight. People think that argument's been dealt with. People think, everything's good now for the LGBTIQA plus community. Everything's, we're all equal. Well, simply as part of the community, we both know it's not.
Yeah.
There are still. I don't want to start quoting all those awful statistics around suicide and that within our community. But yeah, that's potentially, they're the consequences we're talking about. What a Pride Round, what a Pride Round represents. It's just welcoming people, saying, it's not who you love, it's that you're loved. You are welcome here. We are celebrating this together. And I don't want to vilify those 7 players. That's not the one. We need to have be able to have conversations. We need to be able to talk this through, and in a civil way.
As you said, it's education, isn't it? It's
I respect that those 7 guys had their. I respect that those guys. That was the decision they made to step down. I can respect that. That was their decision to make. I don't respect the reasoning behind that decision.
Yeah.
But absolutely, like we should be able to talk about that and like have a conversation, a bit of an understanding and awareness. I mean, this is, I'm preaching to the converted here. You're like,
Yeah.
you and I both know this, mate. We've been around for a long time, and I'm sure the audience all understand because we all come from, like we're coming from that point of view. But I don't think I just don't think anger um, and being vindictive and making people feel less about their choices just because they've made that choice. You should be able to talk about it. I mean, I really think that's the only way we can. And let's be honest, 57. That wasn't unfamiliar to me. I mean, I was involved with that. A month before that program, when I was approached, and I actually asked them, "Have you guys had no pushback yet?" Like, I was surprised it took so long. Like the week before is when it all blew up.
Was it just because of the jerseys? Is that the reason it blew up, because of the rainbows on the jersey?
I all I'm aware is if they weren't happy with the rainbow colouring on the jerseys because of I hope I'm not putting words in their mouth. It's my understanding and what I've been told. And for their religious reasoning, that goes they were opposed to wearing that jumper and what it represented. Like, the thing was, it was a women's round first. At first, it was just a women's round, and Manly added on the pride part just to be more inclusive, like to make we're an inclusive club. And I will say, I was really proud. I mean, I'm so proud that was my old club. When Desi and Daly Cherry Evans had that press conference, you could feel I just felt for them because I don't think anyone at the club realised it was going to blow up like this. Anyone within the club who, like I said, I thought there was going to be a bit of pushback, but obviously the club's administration and it didn't think there was going to be anything like the pushback that it got. I'm patron for an enterprise called Pride in Sports, and an ambassador for another group called Proud to Play, which actually they actually facilitate this type of thing within clubs like Pride rounds. Manly weren't aware of those tools, if you want, and the options. So, it wasn't the best way to start the conversation, but we definitely got it started. The NRL now talking about having a Pride round next year, which would be this isn't about me, but I got to say personally, I would be so disappointed now if they didn't because they realised, Manly realised, Desi realised, the players realised that after all the push, they realised there was actually some things that are much more important than 2 competition points.
Yeah.
When they realised and they saw the effect that this could possibly have on young kids out there struggling with their own sexuality, their sexual identity, and how important that this Pride round potentially became when you have players, and I'm not attacking those players, but when you have players not welcoming them into the sporting community, saying, we won't take part of this because this community doesn't belong here. Well, that's how it could be seen, that's why I think, I would be, honestly, I would be gutted now if the NRL don't have a project. I mean, it would be a real...
Because it's like the Australian Rules has a Pride round.
I went to the Swans Pride round a month prior. Like, it was fantastic, mate. It was like a Mardi Gras event. It was like so wonderful, and everyone there was was into it. Like, it was, when I say into it, just celebrating. And when I say the community, I mean the greater community. I mean the LGBTIQA plus community are part of the wider community. Like, they were just celebrating the whole diversity and inclusion of what a community is.
And you have gay, lesbian, trans fans out there who want to be part of the sport, and it's like it's very. I mean, we've got our own fan clubs. It's like it's very important for the community to be involved.
You are welcome here. You are welcome. You are so welcome here. That's all it's saying.
Yeah, and the other thing is that there were so many amazing benefits and positivity that came out of the round. The Pride jerseys sold out in hours.
It was wonderful. I was like, it was like, yeah, I mean, economically, it was great, you know?
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously, it was also a charity match for Gotcha for Life.
Yeah.
And I believe it raised over about $350,000.
He's such a champion. The guy, the founder of Gotcha for Life, Gus Wallen, he's a wonderful man, mate. He's such a good man.
Yeah, and I would actually recommend the podcast that you did with Gus. It was quite an amazing podcast.
That was quite an interesting podcast because he ended up just being quite a personal chat amongst two friends. Kind of one of those situations where you forget that the mic's there.
Yeah, so I'd recommend people go and look it up and have a listen to that. But yeah, so there was a whole lot of really positive benefits, and as you said, especially for like kids in the country who play footy, and you know, can see that they are welcome in the sport. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. You know, the conversation, we still need to have the conversation. You know, like I keep talking about education, and I always try and bring back to that, mate. I mean,
yeah,
you know, we do need to facilitate more educational programs within schools, outside of schools, for younger people. And visibility is important.
Yeah,
visibility is so important.
I want to bring it back to a bit of a personal level. You attended the game with your partner, obviously. How was it for you on the ground on the day?
We went to I don't know if I said we went to a pub beforehand, just up the road from Brook. It was like a Mardi Gras event. It was so fantastic, mate. It was almost like, because I will say the week for me had been quite stressful because of all the interviews and sometimes, Mark, you can probably appreciate. I mean, sometimes it's hard to keep putting on the happy face when you know the consequences and the long-term potential catastrophic consequences, how this could play out.
Yeah.
So it was. I was feeling really like I didn't know what to expect when I got to the game. But can I tell you, it was when I got and I realised, oh my God, this feels like it's been like such a storm in a teacup.
Yeah,
it's the whole thing was like it was unfortunately Manly lost, but that's what I mean. Even losing the game, like, it was kind of a good thing. When I say that, in the fact that Manly were prepared, they to have their 7 men sit out, lose 2 points, because what we're talking about now is much more important than just 13, no, 17, two teams of 17 men running around on a football field.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
It was such the game was fantastic. It was like, honestly, I can't tell you. It was. Yeah. I felt like I was.
I heard you might have even had a tear in the eye at a couple of points.
Yeah, it's very obviously, mate. It's very personal to me. That's my old club as well, and so that made it even more personal. I was so like, it's sometimes I get really not sometimes I get really like proud of like when you see. The change in people and the understanding and people and the recognition that people, you kind of have these, I kind of see these little breakthroughs with all these really like older, tough men that I played alongside and that who all are now like have a little bit of more understanding and like, it's like kind of like, I was talking about that superpower. It's almost like, it's really like empowering, mate, to see people realize, oh shit, this is just about two people who care about each other. Why have I been pushing back on this all my life? You almost see that, can read that in some people, just like, God, you're right, Mark. I think I've got this wrong. I think I've had this wrong.
Yeah, and as much as horrible as it was, the plebiscite on marriage equality brought up a lot of those conversations as well, and definitely showed people that it's just about two people who care and love about each other and they want to be together.
It was also great, mate, to see Anthony Albanese and that, right? Recognise, like, and the whole political side, like, this was quite a big thing, that Pride Round and the how it played out and the media sensation, not just here, even here within Australia, around globally. Like I did stuff for the US and the UK as well. It was kind of momentous, like quite a moment for potentially for rugby league to become a real leader now. And that's what I was saying about the Pride Round next year. Now the league really have. I mean, the ARL back when I came out had an opportunity to be like the forerunner when I originally came to for forerunner in world sport.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen because of the fear of, or I don't know, the misunderstanding of what that might have represented.
Yeah.
But they're now back in that seat where they can be that world leader again. They can really make a change. They could really champion this, like champion pride rounds and the benefits of visibility and inclusion and welcoming. You know, I just really hope they take the bull by the horns and
yeah, let's hope they run with it and
yeah.
do some good with it. I want to touch on a few other bits and pieces. I want to talk about your acting as well. You went and attended NIDA after rugby league.
Mate, I was Mark. I was always yes.
Yeah.
I was always growing up. I was always part of the ensemble at school.
Yeah.
But Mark, I was never the sharpest tool in the shed.
I believe you had dyslexia as well.
Yeah, dyslexia, it wasn't a thing when I was a kid. You're just dumb. I couldn't read and write. I didn't learn to read or write till after I went to NIDA.
Wow.
And a wonderful man there by the name of Kevin Jackson changed my life, one of the teachers there.
Yeah.
It was the first time that I realised not being able to read and write, there were other reasons for that. It wasn't, growing up feeling that you're dumb is, I used to be that kid who used to get up and run out of class and pretend I was having a tizzy fit because I got asked to read in class or something. I was that kid. But yeah, and I would say learning to read and write and the weight that the shame that I've always felt from it was for me the biggest thing to deal with in my life. Being gay wasn't an issue as compared to that. I was always incredibly shameful that I couldn't read and write. And so being part of the ensemble at the school, I could never cold read stuff as well. So that, obviously being an actor, you need to be able to read. Yeah. So, but yeah, it changed my life, mate. It was one of those life corners for me.
I believe you've worked with someone who we've interviewed on Go Waves before, Craig Borum. You did Teenage Kicks and Lonesome.
Yeah, I think Lonesome's out now.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, originally I've worked with Craig on a number of other projects before that as well. I love Craig. We had such a nice working relationship, and he's just a good guy. He's really I love his creativity to take chances with stuff and the work he produces. Always, some people think it's a bit risky, but I'm like, no, it's really I find it quite powerful.
Yeah. Anything else coming up on the acting front soon?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Oh, okay, fair enough. We'll wait for it. That's cool. Let's talk about something you can talk about. And one of you're obviously very passionate about this project is Qtopia. So tell us about the project and what's going on with it at the moment.
Well, me and a group of just people from the community about 2 years ago, I bumped into a couple of friends. David Paulson. David is one of the original. He's one of the longest-serving survivors of AIDS. He was part of the original 400. He's been involved in multiple medical therapies and that. I bumped into David. I've known David for a long time. A couple of years ago on the street, he'd had a couple of conversations. Because around war, to do with the AIDS war down at St Vincent's, they were closing it down and moving. He wanted to somehow, if we could organise somehow to remember that, or we can't, the idea of a museum came up. Yeah, we so for the first 18 months, we a group of us from the community got together trying to work out how we do this. The last 6 months, we've really got a lot of traction. New CEO, Greg Fisher, came on board, and Greg's a serial not-for-profit entrepreneur. That's what I like to refer to him. He's been fantastic the last 10 years. He has a colourful background as well, but he embraces that. We kind of just been validated in the last 6 months. Sydney City Council have given us seeding funds now. So that kind of validates us. We still don't have a bricks and mortar place. We're desperate. We're hopeful. Brad Hazzard, the health minister, the state health minister, we've been pursuing the Darlinghurst Police Station, Taylor Square, which the health department
that would be amazing. Yeah.
And it has such a history too with the gay community, you know, like not a good history, like you know,
no, definitely.
And there's also that sense of there's almost a healing process going on there too.
Yeah, a reclaiming.
Absolutely. So we hope, touch wood.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be able to make that announcement in the next couple of months.
Is it correct that you've got a concept museum actually up and running at the moment?
Yeah. We have plans for that because of World Pride. That we want to have the concept museum, and those spaces they still haven't been determined yet either. Okay. So, but like I said, we're hoping to make some really. I hope I'm not pink singers now. I feel like, but you know, I don't know. I'm not superstitious, but sometimes, we'll be making that announcement within the next month. It would be like, but yeah, we're still, like I said, we're a group of people from the community who come together, just trying to do the right thing. You know, our skill set hasn't been probably what we need. We've now brought other people on board who are much more. This is much more their area.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, like Sydney needs it. Like it's just time for a Pride museum, a queer museum. You know, like I keep saying about education about my big thing is I'd love to have like school programs run out of there. You know, the Jewish Museum at Darlinghurst have been like so fantastic to us. They've almost like been steering us in every right direction so far. They've been so fantastic. They've really been advantageous to us. They've really helped us. It's just I think Sydney. It's time it's just time for something like this. It should, you know, we need a destination. We need people to know the history, you know, our First Nations history as well, and how they dealt with this subject matter, you know, like, and since colonisation, all that, you know, the queer community has been through, and the brutalisation, you know, but it's going to be a place of, you know, like celebration, education, and remembrance. You know, it isn't just all the I say inverted commas, all the bad things that we've had to endure in the last 250 years. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be like a place that people will hopefully, you know, leave with a smile on their face. They will leave with a smile on their face.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be a major success, and I'll be first in line when it opens. It'll be great.
Absolutely, mate. So anyone out there, you know, we're almost at the stage now where we're in the fundraising and that, you know, like we really need everyone's help for this to get up. We really need not just the queer community. We really need the wider community to support this too. I mean, I've been approaching different sponsors, mate. I've had no pushback whatsoever at the moment. Until we. I am sorry, mate. I didn't know that. I've had no pushback from sponsors until we get the bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
Until we get the actual residency. That's good.
Excellent. Well, look, there's probably too many links and ways to support everything that you're doing. So I'll put them all on the Gay Waves Facebook page and the web page. So if people want to get in contact about any of the projects that you've been involved in,
qtapiasydney.com.au. Like, if anyone wants to talk to me, they can always contact me through that.
That's brilliant. Excellent. Look, I really want to thank you for your time today, Ian. It's been really nice to talk to you. And thank you for all your work. It's
I mean, you're part of that too, mate. You know, we're all part of this community, mate. We all have certain responsibilities, particularly as the older gay, the older queer community. Yeah, I think we do have responsibilities to our younger selves.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you.
Take care, mate.